We're going to start things in a minute here. Ooh, that's bright. Good evening, everybody. This is W2NDG, Neil in Highland, starting the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club's Sunday night Science and Technology Net. Let's pause for any emergency or priority communications. All right, nothing heard. The YouTube stream is going. I have the link up on Facebook, but haven't pushed it to the 835 and the 805 yet. I might do that afterwards. But anyway, we are here tonight to discuss science and technology like we are every Sunday night. This is, I believe, the second to last net of the year because next Sunday's net will be the day after Christmas, and the following weekend, the net would be the day after New Year's, which will be in 2022. So I thank everybody for coming and hanging out. Some of you have been here every Sunday night, and I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun, and we will continue into the new year. Let me drop. Sitting here realizing that not only do I not have anything to write on, but I also have nothing to write with. So let me pause for 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay, I have returned, and I apologize for being ill-prepared. Been a little distracted the last couple of days. Anyway, so here we are at the desk. Windows to the right of me, Linux to the left, and here I am in the middle with you. All the computers lined up. The life of a computer technician. Anyway, let's... Jim said he might be late tonight, but I'm usually joined here by my partner in crime, Jim, K2BHM. We'll throw a call out to him real quick, but I think he is off enjoying the holidays. So, Jim, are you out there yet? All right, we'll catch up with him later, and I'm glad he's off enjoying the holidays. So, anything new with me to discuss? Well, probably not tonight. I have been playing around with a lot of the projects here. Some of you listening may know that I teach a maker's class, which is a very broad term, but it's for the Long Island CW group. It's an online club that has, I think, over 2,000 members now. And I get a consistent attendance of either between a dozen and 2 dozen people on Wednesday nights when I do that class. You do have to be a member of that club to participate, but it's pretty cool. And what I do is I try to build stuff and keep a steady stream of talking about the things that I build. I take a lot of pictures, I take videos, and I go through the various projects. So one of the things I've been doing over the last week or so is going back over some of those projects and just reviewing them, making sure that they're working as well as I want them to be. Not everything works 100% when you build it yourself. So there is some troubleshooting involved, but I did finish a pretty well talked about project last night, something called the QDX, Quebec Delta X-ray. It's a digital radio kit from Hans Sommer's company, QRP Labs. And it does appear to be working. It's just not working, I think, as well as I want it to. So there'll be some troubleshooting there. But I was also pulling a lot of the other stuff out of the drawer and going through it and just getting a feel for some of the things that I've already built and which ones work well and which ones don't. And I have to say, which is pretty cool, I figured out what was wrong with one of them yesterday. So I was listening to it this morning and made some nice videos of that one. Let me drop. I thought we would do an open topic night again. Next Sunday, I believe we're going to be talking about mobile transmitter hunting. Transmitter hunting with a car or in a car, unless your car is equipped with direction finding equipment. You're not technically hunting with the car, you're hunting while you're in a car. I do have a lot of experience with this, at least in a low-tech fashion. And because it's not a regular event up here, I know that most of you, or possibly all of you who will be participating, do not have a couple of $1,000s worth of Doppler or software-defined radio equipment in your vehicles. So anyway, we'll go over how to do it without all that, which the wife, KD2CHE, and I have been doing for quite a while. And we do quite well without all that crazy equipment. So, and this is W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. As I said, it's open topic night. I have a couple things in mind if nothing gels, but let's take some check-ins. And after I get a list, we'll go around and see if there's anything in particular people want to talk about. And remember, it doesn't have to be ham radio related. If there's something going on in your life, in your yard, in your house, that's scientific, let me know and we'll discuss it. All right, to check into the net tonight, you're going to give me your call sign, your name, and your location. Please come now.
Net control. This is K2JLV, Dave, I'm in Milan. Neil, I'm just checking in to support the net. I cannot stick around, but I want to start things off and say hello. Back to you, Neil.
All right. Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for checking in. And if we don't catch you again during the course of the night, have a good evening. And I'll talk to you during the week. All right. Anybody else tonight?
I also will do a quick check-in. I also can't stick around, but KD2II. This is WA2RKN. Jerry, Hyde Park. Control. Here is KB2GGF, Matt in Kerhonkson.
Alrighty, small crew tonight, which is fine. And I hope you guys don't mind. I don't want to go very late tonight. I'm kind of tired. So it's been, I haven't done a ton of stuff this weekend. I'm just kind of mentally tired. Anyway, all right. So I have Dave checking only, CJ checking only. Uh, good evening, guys. Thanks for checking in. I have Jerry in Hyde Park and Matt in Kerhonkson. Anybody else? All right. Well, I have a couple of my favorite topic producers anyway. So we should be able to come up with something interesting. Jerry and Matt. Matt, I'll give you a little chuckle real quick. One of my friends was spouting today to social media that he was kind of tired of, I won't get into names, but people who are famous just for the sake of being famous and didn't really care about, the TV shows that they had spawned or, the Real Housewives of wherever. I forgot which one he even mentioned. And my response to him was, you really don't know what's going on until you've watched The Real Housewives of Crumville. Would you like to comment on that, Matt?
Well, I think there's probably some truth to that. And if there were a Real Housewives of Crumville, I don't know if I'd be afraid to watch it or really eager to watch it. It's sort of a dichotomy. So, interesting idea.
It's like the commercials that WDST used to do years ago for businesses in the Lamontville Mall. I always got a kick out of that. I forget which host it was that did that stuff, but it was really funny. When people come up to this area, Pennsylvania is parts of Pennsylvania, especially Pennsylvania Dutch lands, there are known for some strange town names. But people come up here and they see, Cripplebush, Crumville, The Vly. I ended up someplace recently that I didn't even know existed. I was talking to John UUI on the air while I was there, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you never heard of that place? Don't blink." But it was actually, a hamlet. I think it even had a zip code. Strange stuff. All right. So Jerry, what do you want to talk about tonight?
Oh man, are we in trouble? I don't think we've reached critical mass here to discover a topic. Whatever. You left out places like Painted Post, New York, and let's see, Rock City, Rock Tavern. I'm sure there are others, but Painted Post is the one that caught my attention. I think I'm dry. I can't think of anything else. Anybody else out there want to join the net? I don't think we've reached critical mass. WA2RKN back on that.
Oh, that's fine. Painted Post, yeah. That's out there by Horseheads. One of my favorite town names out that way isn't. I don't even think the place has a zip code, but it might. Is on Route 17. There's a little tiny village that seems to exist around an old sawmill that's in business there, called Fishesetti. And the problem is that the way they spell fishes is there's no E in it or apostrophe. It's just FISHS. And it just always cracked me up. Anytime I've driven through that part of Route 17, soon to be I-86, and I get to that sign and my brain goes, Fish Eddie. It just doesn't seem pronounceable. We could discuss the strangest places on the planet that we've been. I don't know. Matt, any ideas tonight?
Well, on, I think it's Route 28A, there's a sign that says Mombacus, Van Tynekill, Cripplebush, Tabasco, and Pawtucket. And that's a good list. There's some definitely interesting named towns around here. What I always wonder is when someplace has a strange name and someone from out of town always says, wow, that's a strange name. Where does that come from? It's always blamed on the Native Americans. And it probably isn't one of their words. It's probably a misunderstanding of one of their words. So, it's a mess. But I carry on correspondence on the internet with some people in Great Britain, and when I mention names of towns, they often find them quite amusing. But they have their own strange names. One of my friends lives in a town called Pratt's Bottom.
Oh, great stuff. Yeah. Tabasco. That's the place I ended up that one day when I was talking to John on the radio, and I think, where I've never heard of this place before. I've lived here my entire life. I thought I knew every place in Ulster County. Tabasco. Yes. It's a weird one. I just had a couple more pop into my head, but yeah, they're all out there. And every now and then, I remember, I forget how old I was. I was pretty young. I had planned a trip up to the Maritimes, and I never took the trip. I forgot what else came up. I ended up going somewhere else, but I was going to drive up into, Aroostook County, Maine, Caribou, Maine, up that way, and then drive into Canada and drive up through the Maritimes. And one of the places I found on the map was a hamlet, village, town, whatever it was, a sub hamlet of a town called, the town was called Economy, Economy, Economy. And you have in, like in New England, when you have a town like, you have Hyannis, and you have, East Hyannis, West Hyannis, Hyannis Port, Hyannis Center, they do that a lot in New England. Well, Economy had a lower economy, and I had to get a picture of a sign, a postmark, something. I wanted to go to lower economy and get something to prove that I had been there. Who would want to live in a place called lower economy? Anyway, all right. Are there any other check-ins tonight? Call sign, name, location. Please come in. All right, nothing heard. Like I said, quiet night. We're getting near the holidays. Everybody's got stuff going on. W2CRW checking in from the web on chat here. Said Bryn Mawr. Yes, I've been there, I believe. Pennsylvania is always king of the weird names. But yeah, there's some strange stuff there. I know, there's parts of the UK when you get up into some of the towns where they speak some of the ancient languages, as we'll say, have road signs for the towns. And you'll see these town names that are, 30, 40 or more letters long, and just, you look at them, they're just unpronounceable. Very strange old languages, which is, that's another topic for a night, is language. It's always been something I've been fascinated about, at least the weird ones that don't seem to relate to anything else out there. So, all right, we don't have a gelled topic. And I agree, Jerry, we could probably use a few more people to really come up with something, but anything at all. One of the things that I had in my mind was at some point, some night, to discuss the difference between, radio waves and ionizing radiation. We hear the term radiation a lot, and there's a lot of discussion out there in flat Earth land, we'll call it, that things like cell towers can cause all sorts of health issues because they produce radiation. But we as hams know that they don't produce radiation; they produce radio waves, and there's a difference between radio waves and ionizing radiation and what they do. So that doesn't have to be tonight, but that was a topic I was thinking of. I was trying to think. I had something else in mind as well. I know we wanted to talk about propagation again after last Sunday's net, but I want to save that for because I kind of figured tonight would be quiet. Let's save that for the new year. So, all right, back up to the top to Jerry. Any other ideas, Jerry?
Well, taking control of the wheel here and jerking it sharply to the left. Yeah, those HP modular power supplies that we're all hyped up about here. I'm assuming that it's inadvisable power them up without a load or powering them up with a light load. Also, are you tasked with the computer security? Keeping up with all the latest releases and the 0 days, etc., like that.
I don't know much about the first thing you brought up, but you can explain it to me at some point. As far as the second thing, I'm not tasked with making sure things are up to date and such. But in my position, I do get frequently called to do things related to that, and there's a lot of stuff there. So we have the word. It's always buzzwords in my field of work. Now it's you hear the term endpoint management a lot, and that's basically the modern term for everything that falls under that umbrella, which used to be antivirus, anti-malware, and other security protection. There were all sorts of buzzwords flying around over the last couple of years, security-wise. One of them was people kept talking about physical access. If you've locked down your network and people can't get in from outside, what happens if you have a bad actor physically inside of your building? What can they do? What can they get? So that's one thing. Endpoint management is a way of putting everything under one umbrella and securing it sometimes with one application or a suite of applications. And like where I work, we recently switched to something that pretty much does almost everything. And I was expecting total disaster. Let me drop. The system uses a lot of, let's say, AI technology to try to identify things. But one of the big problems with an environment like the one I work in, a very scientific and or healthcare related environment, is that sometimes things that old-fashioned antivirus and anti-malware and security programs would find malicious are not really malicious. Sometimes it's just a computer communicating with a piece of scientific equipment. All sorts of things like that. And the disaster I was expecting didn't happen. In fact, the new software is so good that I have only run into one situation so far where I had to have them put in any kind of exception at all. It seems to correctly identify what is legit and what is sketchy. Very impressed with it. So, in answer to your question, it is my job when I deploy new systems to make sure that they are secure. It's my job when they have a system that somehow gets attacked or breached by something. It's usually my job to physically look at it and try to figure out, what I can do about it. But one of the things about my particular work is that I handle the non-standard things. I handle the computers that don't fit the standards of the rest of the institute. So we have some basic security requirements. When a computer comes in with $1 million piece of equipment, we tell them, if you want this on the network, it has to meet some basic security standards. And it's my job to kind of fight it out with the computer and software vendors to make sure that I can actually do that without voiding their warranty and support. So stuff like that. That's what I do. And a couple of the systems I run, I used to have to make sure were very secure, but the one that I'm mostly responsible for now is kind of out of my hands. It's a cloud-hosted system, and it's a company that's known for being quite secure. But I'm sure if something went wrong, which has happened before with something else that I run, I'll spend a lot of time trying to sort it out. Back to you, Jerry.
Okay, I got a little bit better idea now. But my aim was more along the lines of I'm not in the business. I'm retired, and just basically cruising the tech sites like Slashdot, Hackaday, and being made aware of the current holes in the software in various machines, and lately there's been some severe zero-day vulnerabilities in a JavaScript library that's apparently used by like 80% of the internet. I mean, it's rated a 10. So I was just curious as to whether you track these things or aware of them, but that sounds like that's at another level there. The power supplies, the HP switching power supplies that go into I guess blade servers. Matt turned me on to them. I think maybe it was Thursday Night Net. There was a brief discussion about them. They seem to be great. I am just so impressed by these things. Tiny, powerful, cool, quiet. But being a switcher, I'm leery about trying to fire this thing up without a load or with a light load. Seems to me that switchers don't do well without a nice little load on them. WA2RTN, back to that.
W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. Okay, all right, now I understand. Yeah, and I remember Matt discussing this early on when I first talked to him, probably for the first time. He was converting one. Haven't gone in that direction yet. One of the reasons is I have plenty of power supplies. I had picked up a couple from somebody who was just dumping them. They're Samlec 23 amp, I think they're 23 amp. And then I have a nice Jetstream 27. I have an old Astron brick, one of those giant linear power supplies. And then I have a bunch of the Radio Shack, they're 19 or 20 amp switching power supplies that I bought when Radio Shack was going out of business. And, I think I paid like $18 a pop for them or something crazy like that. So I haven't needed anything else yet. But at some point, I might want to try to mess with one of those. And it's the security. So we have a whole department devoted to this. Actually, more than one. There's a department that defines our security policy, and they're kind of the watchdog. So they're the ones that have their eyes and ears open for stuff like that all the time, and then alert the various departments that actually manage the tools. We need to be looking at this. We need to be looking at that. The incursion that I was managing earlier in the year, when the system that I was running had quite the intrusion. That was one of these like SQL injection vulnerabilities that the vendor accidentally left the barn door open. That was all on them. So both the alert and the fix came way too late. And I won't get any more into that, but it was quite the eye-opening experience to go through one of these from my side. Always the worry that, someone will throw you under the digital bus. Didn't happen. Actually, in the end, I ended up getting quite a few compliments for the way everything was handled. So, and, when stuff like that happens, there is only so much you can do. But that was a moderately well-publicized one because the company in question serviced a lot of pretty high-level organizations that went to them because they kept pushing. Sorry, I timed out there. But yeah, the company involved had all these high-level clients because they were known for their high level of security. Not. Anyway, but that's what ended up happening. So I run a different system now, actually more than one. I have some people, under me that run a couple of the other ones, and everything's buttoned down quite tight. Not really expecting to see anything going on with that, but hey, you never know. Matt, we're up to you again.
Comment.
Go ahead.
WA2RKN. Yeah, just a quick comment. You've activated the neurons in the area, and just a quick comment about a very apropos novel called The Cuckoo's Egg by Cliff Stoll. If you've read it, you know what a great book it is, Neil. I'm sure you've probably read it. All I can say is, if you haven't read it, is there's a 75-cent accounting error. WA2RKN, back to that.
I have not read it. I'm going to write that down. Thank you. All right. Just 75 cents, huh? But, I assume that falls back to one of my favorite expressions: computers don't make mistakes, they amplify them. All right. Matt, you're up next.
Thanks, Neil. And about the power supplies, Jerry, I'm probably the perfect worst case example test torture track, because I've done everything with these. In terms of like putting a light load on them, I've used them to run my microbit X, which when it's receiving, I think it only draws a little less than half an amp. And heaviest load I've put on it is my Kenwood, which, you know, if you're really leaning on it, might use 20 amps. Several other radios that, you know, use less amperage, but it's just worked flawlessly. It continually puts out very steady voltage. I can't detect any noise on any of the radios I operate. It's just been really good. And I figure go ahead and do whatever with them, because if it breaks, I can get another one for like $10, you know, buy 2 or 3 at once. So, yeah. I just run them, and they work really well. And they are neat because they're very compact and dense. It's like a vitamin-packed power supply. But yeah, I haven't taken any reasonable or prudential caution. I just use it, and if it blows up, I've got a spare. Back to net.
Like Schroeder and the Beethoven busts in the closet for his piano. Just go to the closet and get another one. Little Peanuts reference, in case anybody listening is too young to get that. All right. No, pretty cool. And like I said, at some point I may head in that direction. One question though, you find them quiet enough RF wise, no issues there.
Oh, I certainly do, and that's just anecdotal. But Jerry has done some initial testing with it and has found some interesting results. Mainly, what I got out of reading his results, which he shared with me, is that there seems to be a peak of noise around 100 hertz. And I said, geez. So my Kenwood happens to tune down to 50 hertz, and yep, I do pick up like some sawtooth noise right around 97 hertz. It starts maybe 20 before that and continues, so say 75 to 125 in that range, but it peaks at 97. But other than that, I haven't been able to find any noise that I can trace to the power supply in higher frequencies. So I don't think the harmonics are very strong, if present at all. But real clean. Back to that.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, the numbers he's quoting were all kilohertz, not hertz, kilohertz. So it seems to run at about 100 kilohertz.
All right, yeah, we're not doing too much down there. Although I've been, we talked about when we did a couple of things. NDBs have come up, when I did the Spectrum tour and when we were talking about some other stuff. I've been poking around in the lower regions again, just seeing what's down there. Always interesting what you can pick up. Mostly NDBs, but I've left the ICOM here running overnight on Whisper a few times on 630 meters just to see what's out there. Always interesting. Cool. Thanks for the info on the power supplies. All right. Now, for anybody watching, if you've noticed me messing around with something while everybody's talking or while I'm talking, I do have a tiny SA on the desk here tonight, which is the little tiny spectrum analyzer based on a lot of the same electronics as the Nano VNA that gets talked about so much. I'm holding it up to the screen here, and I know some people will be watching this after the fact, but you'll see there's some peaks. It by default will mark the highest peak in the frequency range you've entered. I put in the FM broadcast band as my frequency range here, playing with this thing tonight. And the highest peak is 101.5 WPDH, which I can pretty much pick up on a cucumber and a paperclip. It's right here. The second highest peak is the first one in the spectrum that I put in, which is 88.7, or the New Paltz WMHT classical station, which sometimes is college radio as well. But neat stuff. This has been a very useful tool lately. As I said, I've been going through a lot of my radio stuff, and most radios, even in receive mode, will put out just enough RF that you can get a read on their internal oscillator and figure out what frequency they're set on. But it's great because it is not only capable of reading frequencies off of things, but it will generate RF in different modes and at different frequencies. It'll even do sweeps. So probably one of the best tools I have bought for radio. The only other interesting thing in front of me tonight, and for size reference, I'll hold it up next to my eye here, my face, for anybody watching. This is a Bluetooth speaker that was a gift from my employer this year, the Employee Appreciation Gift for 2021. And a lot of people would think maybe a Bluetooth speaker. Wow, I did it again. I'm holding up a tiny Bluetooth speaker. It's just really, and for those of you on the air, it's smaller than a golf ball. Really tiny. I wasn't expecting much, but wow. The bass technology for small speaker devices has really come a long way. And I'm not going to say it, puts out thumping bass, but it sounds really good for something that I can probably almost swallow. It's that small. So very impressive. W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday night Science and Technology Net. Looking for any further check-ins. We're just here babbling tonight, not talking about anything in particular. So, but come now if you're around with your call sign, your name, and your location.
This is November 2, Foxtrot Zulu Charlie Thomas Fishkill.
All right, thanks, Tom. And no check-ins from Tabasco, New York. Sorry, Matt. And to FCC, Tom. We're like open mic night tonight here. There has been no defined subject. If you haven't heard, or if you have what Jerry had asked me about security, there's been some, I guess, JavaScript vulnerabilities in the news recently. Wanted to know if I dealt with that stuff directly. And then he was bringing up the power supplies that Matt's been playing with, HP server power supplies, that converting them to radio use. So, but this is whatever you want to talk about tonight. And we're not going to be here too much longer tonight. But anything on your mind, any questions, anything really cool that you saw, whatever, we're here. So come now.
N2OZC. I've been listening for a little while, working on my son's laptop. He got a new laptop, but I got this old Lenovo that is having issues. It stops responding. The Wi-Fi stops working. It freezes up. It seems to have stopped that. For some reason, when I do the task manager, it's using 100% of on disk. Thinking of maybe just reformatting it. Anyway, you were just talking about the speakers and speaker technology. It really amazes me, in my younger day, you had the big Altec Lansings or Advent speakers, big speakers, nice sound. And I got this UI Boom, which is a Bluetooth speaker. Incredibly, it's maybe the size of 2 soda cans, but has some pretty decent bass. And it always impressed me how they made a little speaker like that sound so good and like 360 degree sound. So that speaker technology kind of amazes me.
There's been some really cool developments in the the low end size wise, and a lot of you know that I collect transistor radios, mostly ones with shortwave. And there are definitely a couple of examples in that world that are well worth looking at. I'm sitting here hunting in the drawers for a couple, but the first one I pulled out, and these they don't make these anymore. Can't find them anymore, but it's called a Meloson, Meloson M7. I'm gonna hold it up for the YouTube folks here. They also made an M8 after this model came out. Is it made well? No. There's a lot of these, imported radios that are not, made incredibly well. But the technology that went into creating this little transistor radio, and it's just an AM/FM radio, they made a sealed box radio. So that's one of the design factors, is that the sound chamber in it is sealed airwise. And it has an oval driver speaker, and right below it, you can't see it, but I saw someone throw some pictures up of one of these dissected. There is a passive radiator in it. So let me drop. There is another one, and you can find these all over Amazon and AliExpress. They keep changing the brand name, which is funny. I don't know why. The one I have, the version is called a Tivdio V115. I believe the newest brand on this is Reticus, Retekess, Reticus. I think the model is still the same, V115. This one actually plays shortwave, not with sideband or anything, but broadcast shortwave. AM/FM is shortwave, and it has an SD card slot for playing MP3s. And on this one, same idea, sealed cabinet, but the passive radiator is on the back. And this little tiny radio for $20-odd. Puts out a lot of sound. It also has an aux in, so you can use it as an amplified speaker. So definitely a cool toy. Nice stocking stuffer. Have someone throw it in your stocking this year. Let me try. On the large end, I had gone down a rabbit hole on Amazon one night. My daughter had bought the Bose mini Bluetooth speaker, which is incredible sounding. And I'm not going to tell you that any of these other ones I've been playing with sound as good as the Bose. They don't. But the Bose was $200, and this next one I'm holding up in front of the camera here was, I think, $30. And this is a company that was all over Amazon for a while called DOS. DOSS. And this was like the highest rated, inexpensive Bluetooth speaker. But like most of these, it has a line-in jack. And it's really handy for amplifying some of your radio equipment, which I do. I have a couple of little amplified speakers I like to use for that. So always handy to have some of the wired ones around for use with these projects we build. So, yeah. And the A word here to the left of me for playing music. I won't mention her name because she'll react. W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday night Science and Technology Net. All right, let me throw it out there. Anybody else? That would be a new check-in or previous check-ins. Anybody want to talk about anything?
Comment, KB2, GGF.
Go ahead, Matt.
I have TIVDO, TIVDIO shortwave receiver, which also receives low band AM, which is kind of cool. Model V111, but it also was around. I don't know if they still carry a similar radio, but it's like a $13 shortwave radio with a digital display. So how could I say no? And it actually is a lot better than I thought it was. But they're kind of neat. And also, yeah, I do the amplified speakers. A lot of the small Bluetooth speakers also work as a wired amplified speaker, and use those with a couple of the QRP rigs because it has really good sound. It works good. Makes the little tiny radio sound big.
Yeah, and some sound better than others. Some work better with, something like amateur radio. Sometimes you don't want all that bassy noise on there, So something that has a couple of different EQ settings is also really cool, but most of these don't. I got a couple more. I have a non-Bluetooth one. This is a little round one. Kind of looks like almost like an egg. I got it at Staples a long time ago, and it's not Bluetooth. And this is probably the one I use with the radios the most. In fact, it's usually in the bag with the Jigu because it works well with that. So that's one. There's another one in the drawer here, which has the same passive radiator setup as a lot of these, but you don't see it. This is a full shortwave with upper and lower sideband and everything. And the brand is the unpronounceable XHDATA, XH data. This radio is, and it's kind of a sad story, and I bought it before I knew where it had come from, but this was the C. Crane company that designed a sideband version of their Skywave radio. And the company that actually did the design and the OEM manufacturer decided they were going to sell it themselves for less money. But it's really hard to get in this country. They, I guess, eventually relented and stopped selling it directly. But before I knew about all that, I had already bought one. So it is a cool radio. But I think do it over again, I probably would have bought the Skywave instead because I do like the C. Crane company. All right. Anybody else? Anything else to say or late check-ins? I'll mention a couple of the other companies that are out there that do this stuff. There was one called Degen. They're still around, DEGEN. They used to have a lot more radios floating around on eBay, but they're the manufacturer that made a number of radios for other companies, namely when the Eton company was still using the name Grundig, a lot of their radios. A lot of the Grundigs were made by Degen. The other company that made a lot of those is Texsun, and they're still around in a pretty large capacity, selling a lot of little tiny portable DSP-based shortwave radios, some of them pretty sophisticated, and some of them very inexpensive for what you get. So if you like playing with this stuff, which I do, there's a lot of it out there, and a lot of them can also be used as amplified speakers. So some of them are loud enough that you can use them in a pretty large room if you're doing a presentation or something. It's surprising how much volume some of this stuff will actually put out. So, all right. Do we have any late check-ins on the Overlook Mountain Sunday night Science and Technology Net?
KB5BZ.
AMI, listening.
All right, and I hear Bose from Marveltown and KD2 AMI. That is George from Woodstock. Sorry, George, I don't always remember everything. I say when we get to a certain age, our brain just can't hold any more information. But thanks for checking in. We're just doing an open topic night. We've been talking about computer power supplies for radio. We were talking about funny town names. We were talking about tiny little speakers. A number of different things have been coming up. And I was talking about my little shortwave radio collection. But you can bring up anything you want to bring up, but we're not going to go too much longer tonight. So, Mose, anything you want to talk about tonight or comment on anything you've already heard?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. And thank you, Neil. Well, I'm a latecomer. I just got in here. Just heard a little bit about you talking about those really neat little radios. And that's very interesting. That's about all I have. I just wanted to check in and give you one more check-in for the evening. So keep on going. I'm enjoying it. This is KP5TV.
All right, thanks, Mose. And George, if you have anything you wanted to talk about tonight, or if you listen to any of the stuff we've been talking about and you want to comment on, but you're up next.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Let's see, I got the web open to the SDR Angel page on GitHub, and this is an SDR program that'll run on a lot of SDR RTL hardware, and I'm just kind of exploring this. I mean, this looks really quite interesting. As a software front end to the SDR RTL. And then the other thing that I'm interested in is the G90 HF radio, 20 watt SSD, CW, AM, FM, SDR structure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, it just looks like an interesting transceiver. And so I mean, those are the two things that I'm kind of rattling around with. Back to you.
All right, George. I don't have a ton of experience with SDR Angel. The one person in the club that's used it probably more than I have, and anybody I know, is Steve, K2GOG. He did a whole presentation on it with his group, the Hudson Valley Digital Network, HVDN, one night, and I was witnessing that. But I did try it out myself. And what I did was I found a compiled version for the Mac. Actually, I think I compiled it. I went through the steps, and there was instructions somewhere for installing it on the Mac, and I got it running on my Mac, and I was pretty happy with it. It is one of those all-encompassing programs, though. It's almost like it does too much, but it is pretty cool. I think I used it on my RTL SDR dongle, which I have right here. I have one of the ones from the RTLSDR.com blog. And it also worked with my SDR Play RSP1A, which was nice. So I think it works with all of the popular equipment. I don't know what else to say about it, except, like I said, it was one of those all-encompassing programs. It was just regular SDR receiver with the waterfall and all the DSP tools and everything, but then it also had some digital mode decoding built in for both text mode digital modes, visual digital modes, and it would decode, I think, DMR and D-Star on the fly, which was kind of cool. Let me drop. There's been a project for doing stuff like that. There's a whole command line based system. I've actually gotten that up and running as well, where you can decode, DMR, Moto Turbo, System Fusion, and D-Star. It required like an extra sound card and some loopback stuff. It was pretty complicated to actually get it up and running. But as a friend of mine from Long Island had originally gotten it working and showed me how to do it. Obviously the SDR Angel people have kind of taken some of the complexity out of it, which is neat. But yeah, I've used it, I've played with it, but I don't know a ton about it. The Jigu question, let me try. I don't have a G90, but we have a couple of club members that have purchased the G90, but it's an SDR-based 20-watt transceiver. I have heard a lot of good things about it. It did, like a lot of the Jigu stuff, they've been through a couple of firmware revisions. I know there were some heat dissipation issues early on, but I think they resolved that. But Matt, KB2GGF, who's here tonight, has the little 5-watt Jigu, which is based on the same core technology, I believe, and even has a tiny little waterfall display, but that's the little 5-watt 4-band version, the G1M. And Matt has one of those, and I know he's very happy with it. So I have a 5105, which is a completely different radio, but I like that little thing. It's been pretty handy. So if you have any other specific questions about it, let me know, but I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, KD2AMI. Thanks for that. Thanks for the heads up on that. The 5105, I mean, is that made by Jigu? What's that about?
Well, the 5105, I believe, is officially discontinued. You may be able to find them new here and there. It's a quirky radio. Sometimes it's called the poor man's KX2. It's that same format, like a horizontal format radio with a display and the buttons on the top. It was a full 160 through 6 5-watt radio with a battery and an auto tuner built in. Now the G90 I think also has the auto tuner in it, but with an LCD display, comes with the same mic as the G90, and it runs quite a while on its internal lithium ion. They're quirky. They went through various firmware issues. The last firmware they released for it is pretty good. It's a good radio for sideband. I've heard people say the later models were better on CW, but it was not a radio that was made with serious CW operation in mind. But they're neat. And unfortunately, Jigu got to a certain point with the radio and kind of stopped developing it. But it does work for what it is. They have a new model they just released called the X6100, which is similar shape to the 5105, but has a color touchscreen display, and it's SDR based, and it's gorgeous. It's a really neat looking radio, but it's in its infancy. I would wait several revisions, which is good advice for anything from that company. They make neat stuff, but never buy the first version of anything from them.
Yeah, I think that's good advice for just about everything out there. I'm very reluctant to install Windows 11. I'll wait like however long it takes. I installed it on one of my computers and then took it right off, brought it back to Windows 10.
Well, yeah, I mean, almost anything new like that. Windows 11 is, I don't even know why they're calling it Windows 11. It really is just Windows 10 with some overlays and changes to it. But they tightened up the hardware support list. But as we've talked about on a couple of other nets, and I went over in the one class I teach. There are ways around everything. I'm running 11 on 2 of my machines here. Nothing at work yet, but I know we'll start getting some vendor equipment creeping in with 11 on it sometime in the near future. I like the look of it. And otherwise, almost everything underneath is still just Windows 10. Once again, I don't know why they really made such a huge deal out of changing the version number. So, all right. Thanks for checking in again tonight. Let's see if there are any other last-minute check-ins, and I think we'll do a final round. All right, let's get back up to the top, and we'll just cruise through and then say goodnight, everybody. So, Jerry, WA2RKN, anything to add at the end of the net here?
Just to reiterate, the name of the novel is The Cuckoo's Egg by Cliff Stoll, Stoll. And yeah, you mentioned the SA. I noticed my SDR when I broadbanded it out from 30 kilohertz, I think it goes down to up to 30 megahertz. And the hash generated by switchers is like, oh my God, in your face. It's just astonishing. You may hear the noise like every 50, 60 kilohertz in the ham band or something. And it's like, yeah, there's some interference, but when you broadband it and you see really how bad it is, it's just amazing. WA2RKN, back to that.
Oh, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I'll have to play with that as well. And yeah, I just found the book on the Wikipedia entry here. I'm going to leave it up on the screen. But thank you for that. Yeah, the essay has been very revealing with a number of things. I have a couple of things around the house that seem to put out really odd RFI, on pretty narrow frequencies sometimes. Really strange. I'll be tuning around one of the radios and I'll get, what we commonly call a birdie sometimes, but it's not coming from, the call is not coming from inside the radio. Anyway, another terrible pop culture reference. Matt, KB2GGF, anything last minute from you tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to George, AMI, yes, I'm nuts about my G1M Gigo. It's got some quirks. It's got a couple of quality issues, nothing major, but it just does what it does so well. It's such a pleasant radio to use. And with any QRP rig, I highly recommend the Pacific Antennas microphone kit. It makes an Electret microphone that works really well with both my QRP rigs. So, and it's cheap too. Got to put it together, but it ain't bad. And the G90, I don't know much about it. I've read about it. I would say I would definitely consider buying one for myself if I didn't have such a radio. If I didn't have a couple of QRP rigs already. But yes, I think it's a good radio. That sums it up. So thanks for doing the net, Neil, and interesting stuff. And I will listen out. Thanks again. KB2GGF. Back to net.
All right, thanks, Matt. And I answered this in the chat online, but in case he didn't see it, Chris, W2CRW, wanted to know. He said, does the Tiny SA also generate signals? Yes, that's one of the cool things about it. You can set the mode, AM, FM, a couple other modes, and you can set the signal strength, and you can set it to sweep as well, which is kind of cool. Definitely a little Swiss Army knife of a tool. All right. Thanks, Matt. Tom, N2FCC in Fishkill. Any closing thoughts here tonight? Tom has been carried off by his birds. Hopefully not. We'll check with him at the end. Mose from Marbletown. Anything else going on with you tonight?
Thank you, Neil. No, nothing else for me. I do enjoy listening to you talk about projects like that, and the SDR, and the neat little radios and the kits. It's very interesting. Keeps my imagination going, and inspires me to learn and do more. So I do appreciate it. So everybody have a good evening. This is KB5BV.
Well, thanks, Mose. I appreciate it. Man, I just always had a fascination for this stuff. In fact, I was talking about, the one radio I was fixing and taking some videos and listening to stuff on. It's a regenerative shortwave radio, and it's supposed to be an homage to a radio I built, I think, when I was like 10 or 11 years old. Radio Shack Globe Patrol regenerative shortwave receiver. And it's very similar. So, cool radio. Thanks, Mose. George, closing thoughts tonight before we wrap it up. I guess it's a kind of very, very casual and short net tonight. All right. I think George may have checked out. And Tom from Fishkill, I don't know if you're still there. I'll drop.
Well, there are a couple of Georges. I wasn't sure which one you were referring to.
Oh, George from Woodstock. Well, you're the only one who checked in tonight. But yes, we do have multiple Georges. The other George that we hear a lot, I don't think he's checked into my Sunday night yet. But no, just looking for any closing thoughts. Because it was a very casual net tonight. I know everybody's off in different directions, so I wanted to keep things very light. But I don't know if you have any closing thoughts or anything to ask Matt again after his comments. But yeah, please come out.
Well, thanks, Neil. Well, it's just, that time of year when I, consider like hiding under a rock or waiting for it to all blow over. My thought, this time of year goes to, other possibilities as far as the radio spectrum is concerned. And I think that's what kind of holds it all together for me is to consider possibilities. Yeah. So that's my closing thought.
W2NDG on the OMARC, Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. Thanks, George. And that's what it's all about. One of the things I had in mind when I started this net was kind of honoring the late Dick Nadel, K2 RIW, who ran a tech net on Long Island for several decades. And they would get into some pretty deep science some nights. But one of the things he always talked about was how many different aspects of ham radio existed. And there are people who concentrate on one, who get into really narrow focuses in this hobby. One of them being, EME, moon bounce technology. There's some people who are just really into that, and that's all they do. Some people who just do the satellite communications, and people who are strictly QRP operators who like to take a super lightweight CW rig and go hiking with it. There's so many aspects of ham radio that you can branch out into when you want to broaden your horizons and do something with all that extra time that some of us have found ourselves with lately. I don't know if anybody else is on the chat other than W2CRW, but looks like we're getting spammed, which is kind of funny. Oh boy. I have to figure out where that's coming from. Luckily, it's nothing ridiculous, but yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything they want to throw into the discussion before we close things up, or last second check-ins? Please come now.
Here's K2BHM.
Jim, you made it. It was a very, very open and light discussion tonight. Nothing specific. We've been talking about a bunch of different things. But I was just about to close things up. I hope you had a good night and a good diversion. I think that you probably needed.
Yes, definitely. It was just what the doctor ordered for tonight. It's been a very difficult week. But good friends, neighbors, ran a little longer than I expected, but it was very relaxing and enjoyable. And I did hear you talking EME. Buddy of mine, Judd, K2CBA, he was doing moon bounce. He started off with an array of Yagis and eventually wound up with a 28-foot dish. And he was pumping 4 kW DEP, single sideband, and he was the first one to successfully hear voice bounce off the moon. He gave his call sign, and about 8 seconds later, he would hear it come back again.
As a kid, my father had started to encourage me to get into ham radio, because I was a shortwave listener as a kid, and he had one of his customers was a pretty active ham in the area here, and brought me up to his house one night, to have him show me the equipment that he wanted to sell my father for me to use, and he was talking about exactly that. Somebody who had demonstrated that to him. And I thought that was really cool. But at the time, as a kid, I just didn't want to learn Morse code. And that's probably the main reason why I never got into this until I was much older. But that and the early Oscar satellites, which he said that, he had keyed up, and you could sit there with, I think the one one of the really old Oscar satellites, he was, I think the uplink was on 10 meters and the downlink on 2 meters, or maybe the other way around. But he said that, if it was, the timing was right, he could show me, he could key up on the one radio and you'd hear his signal come back on the other one. And, anything involving space is cool to a little kid. But neat stuff. Jim, thanks for checking in. And anything else before I close things up?
No, nothing in particular other than I think I probably mentioned it to you, my buddy who I just lost. He and I built and put on the air the 147.15 2-meter repeater up in Bose, coordinated and homebrew out of some VHF engineering boards and so forth and so on, and worked nicely for years. So, nice tribute to my buddy Ken, WB2GDG.
Well, thanks for that. And as I was saying, I think maybe this morning when I said it, but it's all that stuff that keeps everybody going in our minds. There's certainly plenty to think about there. And that's where we want to focus. So I'll know more about what's happening in my life tomorrow as I discuss a few more things with the doctors at work, and we'll see what's coming up for me. I'm not expecting anything horrendous to be going on here. It's all pretty routine, I believe, but it may require me to drop a net or two here or there, but we will stay in touch in advance, and I'll let you know if I need you to fly solo one night. But yeah, the schedule might get a little weird. We'll see. All new stuff for the new year. And that's it for me tonight. Let me drop before I close the net. You have been listening to the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club's Sunday Night Science and Technology Net, hosted by yours truly, Neil, W2NDG from Highland, New York, and Jim, K2BHM from Saugerties. We meet here every Sunday night at 8 p.m., and we're on the repeater run by the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club. You do not need to be a member of the club to participate in this or any of our other nets, but we do invite you to check out the club and join. If you're not a member, you can find us online at omarcclub.org, omarcclub.org. Please join us for some of the other nets heard on this repeater. Every morning at 8:35 a.m., a rotating cast of characters hosts the 8:35 on the 8:05 net, including yours truly on Fridays. Very casual roundtable style net, not a directed net, started at the dawn of the COVID pandemic to keep everybody social and talking and making sure that we're all okay and had what we needed. And the net still continues, and it's enjoyable. As Dave would say, great with a cup of coffee in the morning, and we enjoy doing it. Every night at 6:30 p.m., a very similar net, but done in a directed net fashion, but still casual, is the 6:30 check-in net, hosted by a rotating group of OMARC members. You can check in, tell us what's going on, how your day was, and bring up anything you might need help with or something you're looking for that you can't find. The net usually runs 2 rounds, and it's, once again, just very casual and friendly. Let me drop. Monday nights at 8 o'clock, we host the Undernet, UNDR, or Ulster and Northern Duchess Readiness Net. This is a net trying to prepare our members for emergency communications, and it's exactly what it says, to be ready, to be prepared. If something happens, what are you going to do? We're trying to get people to make sure that they are prepared in the event of an emergency to be able to communicate and assist people with communications. The net is not affiliated with any of the emergency communication services, but we are looking to go in that direction and educating our people so that they are ready when that time comes. Every Wednesday at 4:30, Paul, ACTUQ, hosts the new Hudson Valley 80-meter net. This is a sideband net, 430 on 3835 or close to it if that frequency is in use. And that is a typical HF net run by Paul. And we're starting to get people from outside of the Hudson Valley checking in, which is kind of cool, but it's a neat net, and it's a lot of fun. One more net. On Thursday nights, Dave, K2JLV, our club president, hosts the Thursday night Tech Net, more of a ham radio tech net, where people come on with questions, problems, troubleshooting, things that they need assistance with, or just something that they're curious about. If a topic does not develop after the first round, Dave spins his topic wheel and comes up with one for us. Always an interesting net. I've heard it go 5-6 rounds into the night. Someone always brings up something that drags the conversation out and keeps it interesting. Good nets on Thursday. And that's it for me. I am Neil, W2NDG from Highland, New York, on the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club's 146.805 repeater, closing tonight's net and returning the repeater to normal amateur radio use. As usual, I'll hang out for 5 or 10 minutes in case anybody wants to chat. But tomorrow is another day, and I have to get down to Manhattan tomorrow. Everybody have a good night, and thanks for checking in. W2NDG, clear and listening, and stopping the YouTube stream right now. Good night.